For a change, all I want to do is talk about a game and why it's brilliant, preferably without extending the vid to feature-length proportions. I mean, can you deal with that? I'm sure you can. This is, after all, a game that requires a clear mind, free of clutter, ready to focus on the job at hand. It's Bushido Blade, the greatest game ever made with Squaresoft's name on it. Now, have you been watching your Zatoichi DVDs a bit too much? Do you feel that you were born at the wrong time, and that you just wish you were a blind, deaf, lone samurai with an adachi and a fanny pack, walking around feudal Japan backed by a stirring oriental soundtrack? Well, why waste hundreds of pounds importing a katana from Japan that you'll never be able to actually use and will make everyone else think you're a bit of a twat? Simply play Bushido Blade and that itch will be well and truly scratched forever, for Bushido Blade is the perfect sword fighting game. 6 masters to choose from, 8 varied weapons, and a wide variety of locations. Places where 2 people meet, and after a frank exchange of views, one walks away. I really loved Soul Blade and played that game incessantly, but against Bushido Blade, it just couldn't compete. Kind of an unfair comparison though. Bushido Blade is a wholly different beast to Namco's arcadey slashathon, and indeed to almost every other fighting game ever made. In this game, any serious hit will result in instant death. You can take glancing blows to the limbs even if you'll lose the use of them as a result, but any major hit to the torso and head area is usually a death blow. I don't know if it's accurate to say that it's true to life or realistic. It's more true to movie life. A certain type of movie, perhaps a bit more highbrow than the norm. Bushido Blade's violence and structure and mood seem very Kurosawa inspired, less Lone Wolf and Cub, more Yojimbo and Sanjuro. The fights are usually very short, lasting about 10 seconds on average. Get a good opening and a fight will end almost as soon as it starts. The game's mood, its lack of music and natural surroundings make the build up to the action as much, if not even more important, than the action itself. I really do love the settings in Bushido Blade. So many of them are classic dueling locations, not exactly cribbed from a specific movie but still highly evocative. There's the sandy beach with the sea splashing at your feet, a small thicket with the bamboo falling as you slash and parry, a snow-covered grove, and of course a dark, intimately lit dojo. It's different from so many other fighting games. You ever notice how in all other fighting games there's always an audience? Or at least a big arena feel. We have the announcer, the pumping soundtrack, combo breakers. You can almost hear the roar of the crowd with every strike. Well, Bushido Blade has none of this at all. Only the sounds of nature accompany the clash of swords, and only the animals and the moon will see who came out on top. You are entirely alone with your opponent. It really sets that mood. Perfect for what the game's going for. And I'm proud to say that I love the graphics in this early 3D PlayStation 1 game, along with the graphics in so many other early PS1 games. Have they aged well? Perhaps not, but that's only if you're comparing them to the clean photorealistic pictures we get in games today. Those jagged edges, raw textures, the focus on approximation as opposed to emulation, that's what I love about these graphics. In short, they're dirty. What sets the mood is the rules that you have to follow, at least in the story mode. The game has a code of honour, most of which is just common sense. No attacking someone who isn't ready, has their back turned or is on the ground. If you break this in the story mode, then it's game over. Although in the other modes you can do whatever it takes to get the win. If you want to beat the 100-person slash mode, then sorry but Bushido will just have to go out the window. It's quite an odd little thing though, a standard to live up to. A gentlemanly code of conduct in a game where the sole aim is to make the other person give up on breathing. But it's what the game wanted, and it contributes yet more to that classic movie fight scene mood. I mean, get this, there's even a button in the game to surrender when you've been crippled. Why? Well, just because that would be the right and proper thing to do. Stick your neck out and get ready to go to Elysium. Of course, this is a practice I absolutely follow religiously. Bushido Blade is so unlike just about any other game ever made. While the inspiration from movies is pretty clear, where was the inspiration from other games? Well, there is one title that's pretty close, Taito's Great Swordsman, an arcade game from way back in 1984. Great Swordsman's take on sword fighting is pretty simple. You get 3 attacks, a high, mid and low stab. These also double as your defensive stances. You hold a button down to switch your stance and perform a full lunge, meaning that you defend yourself by using your own attacks. And the result is a rather sophisticated counter-punching system for such an old game. Bushido Blade plays like an updated version of this. No matter which weapon you choose, you have the 3 stances, and you also have 3 main attacks per stance, alongside a variety of combos, special moves, and one-in attacks. A lot of the joy in the gameplay is similar to other fighting games. You train yourself with a character, pick their specialist weapon and learn all the moves, figuring out what move is the best counter for another, and mastering your strategy. The way Bushido Blade plays, however, the instant death side of it, makes it way more important though. You don't just have to master your own character, you have to know your opponent, study their moves so you can catch them out. The lesson never ends. And when you land a true peach of a counter hit to win a fight, it's one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. Because to do it, you had to lay it all on the line. In Bushido Blade this is normal, it happens virtually every fight, and it never gets old. Constant risk, constant reward. The game against the computer is great enough, but everything I've mentioned also makes it one of the truly classic multiplayer games. Bushido Blade may be unlike virtually any other game ever released, but that doesn't mean it's in any way obtuse or difficult to understand. It's the easiest game in the world to introduce to people. The controls require the briefest explanation, and following that, someone who's never picked up the game before can have a good time. A newbie can play with somebody who's been playing for years. I can play this game with anybody, even the world's thickest idiots, and believe me, I know a lot. And it'll be a blast, whether we're just playing the normal mode or trying to figure out the rather odd first-person POV mode. So with all that said, I really wonder why the game's just disappeared, or why it hasn't been whipped off more. The game's own sequels messed with the formula and ended up spoiling the effect. The closest equivalent we probably have to Bushido Blade today would be the Deadliest Warrior games, which are actually kind of fun in a rather shit way, but they're really cheap and they're not nearly as refined as Bushido Blade. Usually the games that claim influence from Bushido Blade just don't go far enough. They have to include things that don't belong. Somewhere along the way somebody just lost their nerve. But what they don't realise is that the road to Bushido doesn't lead to something obscure, it leads to simplicity. It leads to a gaming experience that almost seems to have been spawned from nature. It just appeared one day in Square's office with no evidence that it had been touched by human hands. There's quite simply nothing like it, an essential, otherworldly title. Bushido Blade is gaming nirvana. That just about wraps up this video. All that's left is to say that all comments are welcome, to desperately plead for likes, favourites and subs from the scant few of you who thought the past few minutes were perfectly decent and acceptable, and finally to sign off, as always, with wherever you are and whoever you may be, have a good one, and take care.